Everyone, it is your girl Rachel coming at you again with another amazing, impactful, and a little bit of a different session tonight. I am super excited to have my friend here with us, and we're newly acquainted not too long ago, Kelly. So the reason why I have Kelly Nolan here with us, the founder of the Bright Method, is I would say a little bit more of a selfish situation. I find myself juggling all the things. A lot of you have asked me, well, how do you get all the things done? Well, it comes with a lot of overwhelm. I'm not even going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Y'all know I have a whole husband, 2 boys, 3 dogs. I was working a full-time W-2, running multiple businesses, trying to hydrate myself and work out, eat a healthy meal here and there. So it's a lot, right? So how do you get it all done? And so always looking for some of the best tools to add to my tool chest. And so Kelly Interstage Love, super, super excited to have her, with us because she was with us a little bit earlier inside of our exclusive mastermind, but this is not a secret. I wanted to keep all to ourselves. So we're bringing her here out to the whole community. And I'm just super excited that she is going to be able to drop some amazing gems to you guys as well. So the way this is going to work, my dear friends, is she's going to share the method with you that she has coined, and then we're going to dive into Q&A because we want this to be as impactful to you as possible. So feel free to drop all of your questions in the chat. I will grab a hold of those and we'll ask them after Kelly has an opportunity to share. So Kelly, I would love, love, love for you to introduce yourself to the people and go ahead and dive right in.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and share my screen. And I am just thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. And we're just going to dive right into talking about what I love to nerd out on, which is time management. So we're going to dig right on in. And my goal is really to empower you with strategies to reclaim control of your time in a realistic way and feel like you have that realistic game plan to accomplish everything you need to do over time. And I truly believe that over time component is critical because I think that we often feel like we need to do it all right now because we don't trust that we'll get it done later or that we'll even remember to get it done later. And so having a system you can use that you can trust to show you how you'll get things done over time is so, so powerful. Okay, so this is going to help you reduce stress, reduce that mental load, help you actually enjoy your downtime and be truly present with friends and family, which I think is what we all crave. So how we're going to do that is we're going to make your time visual in a trusted, simple system that will help you build out that realistic game plan for how you'll get everything done over time. First of all, my name is Kelly Nolan, as Rachel said. I was a patent litigator for years in Boston and California, and I had felt decently organized all the way through law school. And then I quickly got overwhelmed as an actual practicing attorney and adult. And on the outside, I looked like I had it together. But on the inside, I just was stretched way too thin. I was constantly anxious I was going to drop a ball. And I just would be trying to listen to a friend when we were out at a restaurant. She's telling me a story and suddenly like some work thought would go by and my brain's over here, but I'm trying to like nod and talk to her. And I just was like, this is not how I want my life to feel. I'm not able to actually be present with my loved ones. I'm always thinking about all the things I need to do and I don't love it. And I looked for help and nothing really stuck, or things were thrown about like very high level. And then I would try and implement and they were really difficult to implement. And I felt even worse about myself. So that was my situation. And then I was in Boston when I'm practicing and, legal pads all over with all these to-dos, all these swamps of like to-do notes everywhere. And I don't know what made me do it, but I had to email this guy back. And I had to hear back within like 2.5 hours, or we weren't going to be able to move for an extension. And I knew if I hit send on this email, I was going to get consumed in everything else I had to do and completely forget. And so what I did is I BCC'd myself. And if you work in Outlook, you know that if you see the email come in and you can take an email and drag it to that little calendar icon in the bottom left corner that you would click on to go to your calendar. And it creates a calendar event that has the email in the body. And I said, if no word, follow up with this guy, and saved it for 2.5 hours later. And it was this weird moment of like, like empowerment and relief all at the same time of like, my brain doesn't have to function like an alarm clock to be who I want it to be and to show up in the roles and the ways that I want. And that started getting me hooked. And so slowly over time, I built out a whole system to help me on the work front and then later in my personal life. And then as it morphed into being a mom and all sorts of things. But this system really is a realistic way to help you show up in your roles in the ways that you want without your brain being that alarm clock. And so that's what I teach now. And I'm excited to share with you guys. So what I teach is the BRIGHT method. It is for bright professionals seeking bright lives. And to really get the peace of mind and the clarity that we all want, we have to simplify first. We've got to move away from having our action items scattered all over the place in the way we're going to talk about. We really want to bring everything together into one place, maybe two if you have to keep like work in Outlook and you want to do your personal life in Apple or Google, totally fine. But you really want to streamline as best you can into 2 places. We also want to make it visual. We want to stop reconciling everything in our head and really get it out of our head so we can see things visually. And then we want to plan. We need to be spending more of our time in an intentional way. Now, totally realistic here. We need to be, responsive and things like that. We're not going to eliminate that, but we do need to be protecting our time to be more intentional where it matters. So we're getting the most important things done instead of reacting to whatever comes through the door, screaming fire the loudest. So when we combine all of these things, we get a lot more clarity and peace of mind in our lives. And that's what we're really going to dig into in turn here. Okay, sorry for the train. The first thing we need to do is simplify. So we're going to bring all of those time-related activities together into that one place. And I think it's really helpful to just take a step back and kind of inventory, like, where do you keep track of all the things in your life? Because it's something that we don't always truly think about. For events, for like time specific things like this, or a phone call that you've scheduled with someone else or something like that. Where do you keep track of those? Usually some of us use like Outlook, Google, Apple calendars. You might use a paper calendar. You might even have a wall calendar home. Something sometimes just live in our email inbox. And on the to-do list front, the things you need to do that can kind of have some flexibility on when they happen. Usually we use to-do lists, a digital calendar, perhaps, email inbox, your head, post-it notes, phone notes apps, if you're writing like to-do lists in those phone notes, OneNote or Evernote, Microsoft Tasks or some other task management tool, a project management tool, or if you're here following Rachel, you might be using some sort of like house management software as well. And just take a step back and realize like it's very normal if you use a variety of these places, like 3 to 6 to 7 of these places, very normal. So please don't feel weird. But it's also, that's a lot of places when you're like, what do I need to do next? And you're trying to kind of consult 6 or 7 different places to figure out what that is. The great news is if you're high in number here, please know just by streamlining, we can really, really help reduce your stress. Because at the end of the day, it is just not the best use of your time to look at all of these different places to know what to do next. And it's not the best use of your awesome brain to be the one that's just like holding all the things and how they all come together and creating your game plan for yourself every single day. We really want to simplify. We're aiming for 1 place, maybe 2, again, if we keep work and personal life separate. And when we're picking that place, I really want you to understand that everything comes back to time. All the things that live on all those different places all require your time, and they draw on the same bank of time, which is your awake hours. So when we're picking that one place we're streamlining down into, we want to use a tool designed to manage time, which is your calendar. Now, I really mean a digital calendar here, just to be really clear. So like an Outlook, a Google, an Apple, some combination of those if you need to. I used paper planners through law school. I still process by writing paper and pen, but a digital calendar just cannot keep up with paper planners in terms of the efficiencies. And I think you'll start to see it as we talk more about this today, but also the communication ability with, home partners, work people, things like that. It's just so efficient and awesome that I just throw that out there for you. If you want to reach out to me after to ask questions about that, please do. Time management is incredibly personal, and I don't think that everyone should use the method that I teach. So please know that, if your paper calendar is working for you, like, keep at it. I'm not here to break anything that's not broken. But if it's not working for you in a lot of ways, I do urge you to try a digital calendar for many, many reasons. I do want to quickly talk about tasks because people are like, yep, this kind of makes sense. And then when we really talk about like getting rid of to-do lists as an ongoing time management tool that we use, like people struggle with that. And I get it, because like I loved my to-do list. They're like a weird security blanket type thing. But while many of us people love our to-do lists, like they make us feel like they still let us feel like we are bad at time management. And I'll just encourage you that, like, if you're using a tool that is a time management tool that makes you feel like you're bad at that thing, it might be time to look for a different alternative. So the reasons is that when you are using a system that you have to-do lists, and then you have other lists on Post-it notes, and you have lists in your phone notes app, and your email inbox is another to-do list, and all of your to-dos are scattered in the ways we've been talking about, you don't have that clear view of all the things on your plate. So you don't know when or how or if it's all going to get done. And that uncertainty causes a lot of stress, like more than the work itself. And so what we really want to do is create and use a tool that can help us see all the things we need to do, how they're going to happen over time, have them all together in one place so we get that clarity. To-do lists also require a ton of mental gymnastics. So let's say that you have like one to-do list. You're like, yeah, I'm good. They're not scattered. They're just like on this one to-do list. I keep everything on there. The problem with that is that everything on a to-do list looks the same. So, all these things look the same in that image. You can use it as an example, but some things take 5 minutes. Some things take 5 hours to bring together. Something can require your best energy. Like you need your best energy to knock something out of the park. And other things can be done when you're zonked. Like it doesn't really matter. Some things can require an office to be open or a colleague to be working for you to be able to do them, and other things don't. And so these are the types of things that every time you look at a to-do list, your brain is doing all those calculations. What do I have time for? What do I have energy for? Can I do that right now? All that kind of stuff. What we want to do is help you kind of run through those mental gymnastics, but one time, and then lay out a game plan in your calendar that you're like, this time will work well for that because the office is open, or this time will work well because my energy is high, or this I can totally do in that afternoon slump. Let's slot it in there. You're making those decisions one time, and yes, they might move a little bit, but on the whole, you can play it out like that. And then you just get to spend your time doing. So you kind of really reduce that decision fatigue and that exhaustion and save that brain power for the actual substance of the work itself, not deciding what to do in those moments. And the third thing is really what I think of as to-do list defeat, which I think is a feeling we all know, which you like do this awesome thing. Like you're feeling awesome. You're feeling so good and proud of yourself. And you go to your to-do list to cross it off and you see the 48 things you didn't do. And you're like, ugh. And like, in no world were you going to get those 48 things done today. But for some psych reason, I don't understand, because it's on a list, we think we should be able to do it all today, even though it would take like months on end to do it. And so we feel defeated. We really want to use a system that helps us understand what's realistic in a day, helps us feel accomplished when we get most of that done, and doesn't have us focus on what we didn't get done and feel defeated all the time. So that is why I just urge you, even if you are a paper planner, paper to-do list, all that kind of stuff lover, really keep your mind open to this, because I truly believe, looking back, that to-do lists actually cause a lot of our stress more than the work itself, and that calendars help us truly solve a lot of those problems. So let's turn to that. Like, what does this look like? Let's talk about making it visual. We're going to bring all those things into a calendar. Like, what does that look like? So here's just an example of what it could look like in a day. Now, I just want you to not worry about anything going on here, but just understand that like all of these things could be in your calendar. We have research, we have drafting, we have email, people things, processing email, lunch, driving to a meeting, having the meeting, driving home, maybe making a call on that way, maybe calling even like a doctor or a pediatrician that evening for kids, processing email, outlining a presentation, like everything you need to do is represented on here. Now, before I lose some people who are like, this is not for me. So I totally understand it. I just want to talk about some of the objections that I hear. The first is that oh, this looks busy. Like this, I just don't like it. And it is like, this is a busier way of using your calendar than you might be used to. But I want you to understand that this is already how you're using your time. We're just confronting it and making it realistic. Because let's pretend you only have the blue on there. Like I got this meeting today and that's all that's on my calendar. You have a lot of white space, but your brain knows that it's not free time. It's not like, oh, go do whatever you want, take a nap, read a book, like you're cool. Like you know it. So what's happening is your brain is pulling from the to-do list, the post-it notes, the emails, all those places, and essentially creating this plan, but in your head. And then it's holding on to it as hard as it can. And then a curveball hits and you rearrange it and you're hoping you didn't forget something and you're holding on to this new plan. Like that is a weird use of our brain when we really think about it, when we could be using it for more substantive things. What we're doing here is just taking that plan that our brain came up with and then getting it out of our head and into our calendar. So yes, your calendar is going to look more busy. It's going to look more cluttered. It's going to look all of those things, but your brain is going to be more free and more light. And that is the more important part that we're really working towards. So I just urge you to consider playing through that this looks busy feeling, because it's really, you're going to feel the lightness in your brain more. The other thing is that they like that, like people are like, this looks rigid and I don't want to live my life according to boxes. And like, I completely understand that. What I want you to know is that there are some people who teach time blocking and putting things in your calendar like this. And then they're like, live and die by your calendar. Like, I just want you to know I am not one of those people. The way I approach this is that we're just taking all the things we need to do with our time and getting them out of our head and creating a game plan. But if you wake up and you do that research issue and then you turn to having to draft some responses and you're like, I just don't feel like doing that right now, or something else happens and you can't do it, then I just want you to know, you're like, okay, let me find a new time for it. Let me see if it still works with the deadline, with my plan. Okay, I can move it. Maybe I have to bring some low energy stuff in here so that to make room for me to do that thing later, but it works. You just do that. And then you play out your new plan. And it's very weird. I can't explain it, but using this system helps me be just as spontaneous as I used to be and rearrange my plans, but with a lot less guilt, because I can see that it can still work. I mean, there are rare occasions where you're like, well, if I don't do this now, it's not going to work. But like that doesn't happen very often. Usually you can rearrange a plan and it works. But before I use the system, I would be like, I'm not going to do that now. I'll do it later. And I'd be trying to maybe do something fun instead. And the whole time I'm like, oh, should I be doing that thing? Like, can I still get it done? And like feel that stress. And by using the system, I can see that it can still work. I just get to play out a new plan without being so stressed out about it or anxious about it or feeling guilty about it. So I just throw it out there that it does look rigid. There is more structure, but it weirdly allows for like more equal amount of spontaneity with less guilt, I should say. All right, the benefits of it is that you get realistic about what you're going to do in a day, because the beautiful part of a digital calendar is only so many blocks of time fit in the days of like the hours of your day. And if you are trying to fit more in there than fits from a visual perspective, you're objectively trying to do too much. And that can be frustrating. But at least you're figuring that out on the front end and setting your expectations and maybe communicating some changes if they need to happen, then trying to think you can do 3 days worth of work in one day and then constantly failing to do it and beating yourself up about it when like no one could do that. And no one in no world was that realistic. We really, really want to create realistic plans and embrace and work with reality instead of just trying to deny it and constantly try and shove more things into it. Because that is how you get to go to bed feeling accomplished about what you got done, focused on what you got done, feeling good about that, instead of constantly beating yourself up for not getting that unrealistic amount of work done in a day. This also helps you create a game plan, because I'm only showing you a day here, but if you imagine like over weeks, over months, throwing things out into your calendar in this way, you really can create a game plan of how you're going to get things done over time, which is a critical component of being able to take a break and actually enjoy it. I kind of have this like pet peeve when people are like, just schedule like self-care or just schedule like time for fun. Like, if I told all of you like tomorrow from 10 to 11, go get a massage, like that sounds great in theory, but it's the anxiety around when we're going to get everything else done that has an impact on our ability to enjoy that time. And so to me, getting clarity around how am I going to get everything done and that I can see that it can still get done. I can still build in wiggle room time and flex time and all of that, but I can actually see that it can get done and I can take a break tonight. That's how you actually take a break you can enjoy. And that's what makes this a really game-changing method for a lot of people. It also helps you focus. So I always kind of go to the fun and like wanting to enjoy it, but also it does help you really focus at work on what's in front of you, because you're not like, well, maybe I should be working on that, or maybe I should be over here doing that. You're like, nope, those things have time protected for them in the future. This is what I'm supposed to work on right now. And that is really, really powerful. I'm not a big like productivity person in the sense of like get things done as fast as possible. But when you can focus, like truly focus on what's in front of you, you will get it done faster. And so that really has some nice ripple effects on the rest of your life and day. All right. And then, as I was talking about, you can trust the white space, or better yet, protect time proactively for what you want to do with your time, and then enjoy that as well. All right. Just throwing out there, I think it kind of touched on this just now, but I really want to be clear that this method is about taking the things you need to do or you want to do and creating a game plan for them. It really is not about time blocking every minute of your day and being like this productive machine. And so I just want to really throw that out there for you, that I think time blocking in this kind of, in a way that your calendar might look as maybe crazy as someone might think mine is, but the goal is to really use it to design and then live out a life that I'm excited about. And it's not about becoming some productive machine. So really approach this system with that in mind. And of course, like I'm all about accomplishing things and doing wonderful things for the world, but also make sure that you're using it to design out this life you're thrilled about, because it is just the one life we get. And so make sure that you're using it with that in mind as well. I also want to throw out there for those of you who are like, yeah, I've tried time blocking before and it didn't work for me. I didn't do the thing when I scheduled it. I don't have the discipline, or it just didn't work for me, or whatever you might take away from it. I don't want you to give up on it. I think time blocking is one of those concepts that is thrown around as though it's like just time block, or like just batch, or just delegate. It's like all these time management concepts are thrown around as though they're so easy. Then you try and implement, you're like, I don't even know what this means. I think time blocking is one of those things. I don't want you to give up on it if you've tried it before without any further guidance of how to do it. I really believe that if you only time block one or two things, it's no wonder you don't do them when they roll around. To feel the power of the system, I do think you need to go all in and put in like 95% of the things that you need to do in your calendar. And the reason for that is kind of what we were talking about before, is that when the time rolls around, if you have 5 other to-do lists with 15 things on each of them, you're going to worry that the things on there are more important than what you put in your calendar. So you're going to be pulled away from your calendar because of that. When instead, all those things are in your calendar in the future, you don't get pulled away as much, because you're like, no, those things have time protected for them in the future. I don't need to worry about them right now. So I just want to throw that out there for you. If you've tried time blocking and you're like, it doesn't work for me, give it another go, knowing this level of detail, because I think it will really, really help you. Okay. And just throwing that out there, I do talk a lot about work because I tend to work with professionals that can be the main focus. But I really want to throw out there for you that really leverage your calendar in your personal life as well. There are like tech strategies that, I teach on like how to make this less overwhelming, but know that you can still do this in your personal life as well, because so much of the stuff we carry in our brain, so much of it is the personal to-dos that we have to do. When am I going to cook dinner tonight? When am I going to walk the dog? When am I going to shower and get ready in the morning? When, if I have kids, am I going to, like little kids, when am I going to do bed and bath time in relation to dinner, in relation to all these other things we need to do? And like, it's a constant puzzle in our brain. Really, like, I know it can feel silly initially. Get that stuff in your calendar too, so you can see how it comes together and your brain isn't the one holding that constantly, and then every day you're reinventing the wheel trying to figure out how it all comes together. It can be a really great way to get the mental load out and then reevaluate again whether the plans you've been holding yourself to are realistic in the first place, or whether you need to make some adjustments. Okay. I'm touching on that. I think it is always important to do this, in part because you do start seeing what's realistic and what's not. And you might realize, well, no wonder I haven't been working out 5 days a week like I wanted to. In no world, when I see all the things I'm trying to do, does that work? And, it might, again, have some front end frustration, but you can be like, well, maybe given everything I have going on and what I need to do, I'm going to work out 3 times a week or 2 times a week for 20 minutes instead of 45 minutes. And what's great about that is if you're like me, when you were trying to work out 5 times a week for 45 minutes and it wasn't working, you just didn't do it at all. Where if you can do it 2 or 3 times a week for less time, then you actually start doing it and you start to see those benefits. Same thing for work, same thing for other parts of our personal life. Understanding what's realistic and creating that plan is so critical to helping you actually bring those things to life and again feel accomplished when you go to bed every night. All right, the third component of this, again, we simplified down to a calendar. We're making it visual, really bringing things to life in our calendar. We do need to plan. I really believe that if we want to feel on track, we got to lay down the tracks. We got to know what we want to do and where we want to go. I'm not going to go into this in a ton of detail today, but I do have an article in Fast Company. You can just Google Fast Company, Kelly Nolan. It's like, I don't know, how to plan your week or something, and check it out because it gives a lot of detail. If I just throw it out there that planning is another one of those time management concepts that's like, just plan. And like, if you're like past me, I would sit down and be like, I know this is important, but like, what am I doing? Like, what does planning mean? What does that actually look like? And so I'm a huge proponent of an agenda driven planning session once a week, where you kind of make sure you got everything done in the past and you can lay out your plan for the next couple of weeks, like throw things into the future and then smooth out the next 2 weeks and just make sure that everything's working there. Maybe move a meeting by half an hour if you need some extra space. Make sure if you have pets or kids that you're all set on the childcare front, that kind of stuff. It's an amazing way to issue spot those things that will cause stressful conflicts down the road. You can issue spot them ahead of time and really smooth it out. The last thing I'll say on that front is that I really encourage a Friday planning session, whether you do it Friday afternoon or Friday morning, whatever works for you. The reason for that is that when you do a thorough planning session, you feel really good at the end of it. I've had clients who will have called their partner at the end of it and are like, buy a bottle of champagne. Like, I feel so good about feeling on top of it. I know nothing's fallen through the cracks. I know I can take a break this weekend and not work and it's going to be okay. I want you feeling that going into your weekend. So you get to enjoy your weekend. A lot of people plan Sundays or Mondays and they have that like looming, like Sunday scary feeling, like looming over them all weekend long. We really want to get that high of feeling I'm like on top of it going into the weekend so you can be more present with everyone and really soak that in. So just throwing that out there for you to consider. And that is it. Those are the basic things. We really simplified, make it visual, and plan. Now, before we turn to Q&A, I just want to really, really emphasize that it's okay if this stuff is hard for you. When I was feeling overwhelmed for a couple of years, there was like a lot of shame around that to me. I think that there's this feeling of like you should just know how to manage all this stuff. And when you don't, you feel bad about yourself. And I just want to throw out there, I mean, most of us were taught time management, like with a paper calendar and to-do list, like in middle school, when our life was like boxes of classes and other people cooked our meals and like that was it. And we don't update our system a whole lot. Maybe you threw some more apps that basically are the same type of thing into the mix, but that's it. And like those things just can't keep up with a lot of our lives now. And that's a tool failure. It is not a character flaw in you. So just throw that out there for you, that if I can be a resource for you through this process, please let me know. I also never want to sugarcoat that I do actually think time management, I think it's good. Like it's simple enough when you get the hang of it, but it's hard when you're learning it. And I never want to sugarcoat that. I just think that you have to plot out all the personal stuff to lighten your mental load. You have to share it with your home partner and maybe make some adjustments there to share the load and communicate better. You have to take control of your work hours. Like, when do I want to have focus time? When do I want to manage email and more? There's really breaking down projects into realistic game plans, like improving team communications, reducing scrambles, all that kind of stuff. And then those planning sessions and really getting like a personalized approach to your planning sessions. So as I just want to throw that out there, because I really hated when people were like, just do this. And then I felt like it was so hard. I never want to do that. I think that it is harder than we want it to be, but it's really worth when you get a handle on it, because the benefits, I mean, time management's everything. Everything comes back to time and it affects so much in our life. So it's really worth it. And I just wish you luck in that process. And if I can be a resource for you, please let me know. My website's kellynolan.com. there's my email address. I'm on Instagram a lot, share a lot of bite-sized tips there as well. And I'd love to be there for you. And on my website, there's a free 5-day program if you're interested to get more of a taste of it. But thank you for being here. And I'm more excited to dig into helping you tailor this for yourself personally, because time management is so personal.
Oh, that was so good. I wrote down so many notes. Oh my goodness. And I just love the way, Kelly, that you shared your aha moment with the outlook. I think I've done that once and I thought, wow, that was great. I never did it again. So I'm glad you had the wherewithal to realize, wait a minute, if I just did it, I could do it again and then again and create a whole system around it. So good for you, because a lot of times it's just one hack that could like really move the needle for you and others and in your community and thereby in our community. So I just love that. And I know you started off by saying simplify, and that's something that I felt like I was doing it, but there's a ton of evidence that I'm still not there yet. So I'm better, right? I don't have all the scattered paper and all, multiple calendars, and I have consolidated quite a bit. And so what does that process look like if you're looking to consolidate from, having multiple different types of calendars to one calendar? Is it do you do it in phases? Do you just go cold turkey? What does that look like?
Well, let me address it 2 ways. First of all, know that if you are like a natural paper pen writer and you like make to-do lists for yourself, like on a phone call, even like, what are the things I'm going to do, or as things come to you, I never want you to feel like you can't do that. Like, work with your habits. So I still, as I mentioned, like I process by writing. I have paper all over my desk. I like to do that as well. What we want to do is then we just want to bridge it to our calendar. So at the end of the day, I teach something what I call the end of day suite, where you're kind of like wrapping up work for the day. I actually recommend, by the way, not to necessarily do it in the last half hour of your day. I think that a lot of people are then like, well, I'm just going to go. So instead, maybe like an hour and a half before you leave, really kind of try and be like, let me gather all the notes and things like that I wrote today, take any action items, put them in the calendar, figure out when you're going to do them, that kind of stuff. Throw away what you can, file what you need to, that kind of stuff. Maybe also make sure that you've gone through all email and gotten all the urgent stuff done. But it also then gives you another hour that if you do find something that's urgent, you're like, oh, gosh, okay, well, I have time to like actually do this. So I just want to clarify that using this system is not like anytime an idea comes to you, like find the perfect time in your calendar to do it. I don't think that's realistic. Just know like what are your natural tendencies and then bridge them into your calendar. And you can even tell yourself where to look at meeting notes. Look at, for me, I have little kids, I'm running around all the time. Like I do ask Siri to remind me to do things, but Siri's like actually really bad at reminding you to do things. And also like doesn't always understand what you meant. So you like, just a random tip is like give a lot of detail because half the words will be wrong, but then you can kind of piece it together. But one of the things that I do is like go look at your reminders and pull the things out of there and put them in your calendar. So that's the first thing I just want to throw out there. And then in terms of like, you're like, okay, I want to use this process, but all this stuff lives in a lot of places. It does take time to set this stuff up. And what I would do is the first step would be to use my calendar to protect time to do it. And so if it's like 1 hour twice a week, I'm going to just like gather all my action items and start building out my plan. Like it's not sexy, it's not fun, but it takes time, and just kind of pace yourself and know that it's like an ongoing process. I will also throw out there that a mistake that I see when people are starting is that they take the one-off to-dos and they put that in their calendar right away. And I really urge you to kind of think about those mental the personal to-dos that we keep in our head. I would start there, because I often think we're like, okay, I'm just going to do like this 8 hours of work and I'm going to just put my, one-off to-do list in there. But we're not thinking about how does that interact with like when I'm going to take my kids to school, or when I'm going to shower, when I'm going to be driving, or when I need to walk the dog. Like I call those the invisible to-do list, that all the mental things we do all the time. And it is shocking when you lay all of them out in a calendar. You're like, oh, this is like hours of my day that I wasn't accounting for. And again, it's frustrating to see that I actually only have 5 hours a day to work, not 8. But again, then you make better decisions on how you're going to use those 5 hours instead of planning 8 hours of work. And same on the work front. There are repetitive things we do in our work that we're not accounting for, like email. Like we all deal with hours of email every day. You don't have to perfectly calendar that number of hours every day for email, because it does lend itself well to nooks and crannies. But like if you're on email 3 hours a day, like you probably should protect at least an hour of email time every day to process.
That is so good. Oh my goodness. And I love the approach of finding the time to gathering the tasks to create the time in the future.
Yeah.
It's almost like a gentle way, and giving ourselves that grace. And I think honestly, what I love about it is that grace. How many times do we hang around with this gloom and doom of us beating up ourselves for not doing it? But what I will tell you is the shocker for me is, I was bopping around drinking my water. And when you said no to-do list, I was like, wait, what did she say? Excuse me.
Who did I invite into this group?
Mayday, Mayday, 911. Did she just say no to do? Wait, for some reason, that hit me the wrong way. That smacked me in the face, and that was like, I've calmed down from it by now.
Good.
I'm picking up what you're putting down, but the first time I really heard you say it was a shocker to me. And you're absolutely right. Like, it's a long list. Nothing is, itemized in terms of, is this a 1-minute task or is this a 1-hour task or a week task? But it's on there. I mean, and it makes so much sense.
it honestly, like, it makes my blood boil now. Like, not at the time, like I thought it was normal, but like I see, all these beautiful planners that are like, here's your day, and then here's your separate to-do list. And it's like, you're going to plan this busy day. I mean, we all have all these activities, and then you're supposed to just like do these tasks that will probably add up to 5 hours of work when, and I just think it sets people up for failure. Like how, for everything we do, whether it's a task or whether it's an event or a to-do, you need to know, when are you going to do it? How long is it going to take? And does it fit with everything else you have going on that day? And when we organize our events like that, and then the to-dos are over there, but often just as critical as the events, it's not creating a realistic plan for ourselves.
Yeah. And you're so right. And I think a lot of people will need to listen to this. So share it with your friends, my friends, because a lot of people need to forgive themselves, because at the end of the day, you do feel like, oh man, like a failure. You really do. Like, you have failed again, yet another day, because your to-do list isn't complete, but realistically, it wasn't real. And the decision fatigue that comes with it, even if you were to decide, okay, oh my gosh, by the time I'm done writing up my to-do list, I'm sweating, I'm breathing hard, like, oh, that was a lot.
Am I done?
I just did a lot.
Did I do them?
Did I do them? Exactly. What is that? What is it? So exhausting. It's a lot, right?
It is a lot.
Forever long list, you don't really identify, well, which one is really going to move the needle in my whole life, which is really going to be the thing that, makes all the other little things, unimportant, so it's quite a bit. So this is so important. I think it's so timely, because we're at that middle of the year mark, and if we look back from the beginning of the year, what were all things we intended to accomplish for the beginning of the year? Where are we now? I think it's important to take inventory. Where are we now? And what we can do to improve upon, our processes, to give ourselves that grace and to move forward and wrap up the year in a way that is strong and that is empowering as well. So I wrote here, I actually had a question for you about prep time, handling that. And I think that's one place that I really lack in is, for instance, if I have to deliver a speech or something like that, and just finding a concrete, realistic amount of prep time for that,
Mhm.
that is consistent. So it's a little bit here and there, but nothing really concrete, really consistent. Do you happen to have, you know, a little bit of wisdom for me with
Yeah. Well, no, I
prepping
think
for things like
you're
that?
thinking about it exactly right of, if for whether it's a presentation or even just a meeting that you have with someone,
Mhm.
always thinking in like, what do I need to do for this and when am I going to do it? And so one of the things like you might want to do is in that Friday planning session, have your agenda of what you want to do. And one of your light items is like, look at your next month of presentations and have you scheduled planning like prep time for each of those presentations.
Mm.
That's something you could also, as you could have a team do that as well, that like they look ahead in your calendar and block that prep time.
Oh,
I will
cool.
also throw out there that follow-up time can be really important. Maybe not for a presentation,
Oh.
but meetings is scheduling 15 minutes to follow up on every meeting you have. Now,
Mm.
you might not need to do anything when that time rolls around, but if you are like me, you're like, you wrap up a meeting and then you're just on to the next thing and you like forget about the deliverables you said you would send people. And
Yeah.
so reminding yourself to go back and look is also another piece in that. So when you're doing prep, do follow up. And so just to clarify, I know I said it, but just to reiterate, don't expect yourself like every time you put a meeting in your calendar to remember now I must schedule prep time and follow up time. Use that Friday planning session agenda. Have a line item in there that says, look at next month of, presentations, meetings, schedule, any prep time I need. For some things you might not, but any prep time I need, schedule follow up time that I might need. And that will give you those like, I don't know, floaty wings to like go through the process, the
Oh,
feeling a
that's
lot less
so
stress.
good. No, that's so good because after I attend, say I had a banger of a summit that I attended in San Diego, and I met so many amazing people. And afterwards, oh, we gotta follow up, we gotta catch up. I didn't
Yeah,
do a good job of that at all, and I should
totally.
have just blocked a couple of days on my calendar to do that. But we're back into my routine, back to
Totally.
back to back. So you're
Well,
so
and it's not too late. I
good.
mean, what you could do is put it in your calendar now and even, know that, okay, the full 2 hours that I would want to spend on this, I'm not going to get.
Mhm.
So maybe the first thing I do is like, I love also, even though I say everything in your calendar, like you could create a spreadsheet of the people you met, or maybe you have some sort of system like that
Mhm.
already. And then you schedule for half an hour once a week, I'm going to reach out to someone on there. That's it.
Nice.
Maybe that's what's realistic. And you link to that spreadsheet and then that half hour
Beautiful.
for the next couple weeks, you're just reaching out to people. And again,
Yeah.
it might not be like the best thing you could do. Like the best thing you would do is like spend the next 3 hours doing that, but like it's just not going to happen. So what is realistic and how do we plan for that?
Ooh, I love that.
I
It's a
also
gentler system. This is awesome.
Yeah. The other thing I'll throw out there, and this might not apply to you, Rachel, but it might apply to someone listening, is like when you start seeing how much prep work goes into some of the stuff you're saying yes to, when you're confronted with that, you just might then make some adjustments as well. Because my philosophy is not like how to get it all done all the time. What happens is you're starting to be like, wow, I didn't realize that actually each of these presentations are taking me 5 hours. So maybe I say no to more presentations, or maybe I raise my rates for certain things in relation to that, or maybe I just have a more streamlined, these are my two talks, they can pick one, but I'm not prepping new talks all the time, whatever it might be. Like I'm just throwing out options. But when we start confronting like how long certain things take us, that's when we can make adjustments and get creative about what that adjustment might be. But it can really be an awesome way to find a balance that actually works for our lives instead of being like, well, I'm really bad at prepping for presentations. I'm terrible at failing at this. It's like, well, it's not working for your life. And that's why you feel that way.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And we do have a bit of feedback in the comments, which I love. So Sherman is saying, I asked the question, is this resonating with anyone? Sherman is saying, yes, I'm always worried I'm going to forget something.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's where I think you said, Kelly, like writing it down.
Yeah. Right. As things come to you, write them down just on a piece of paper, and then really bridge them to that calendar. I will still get randomly anxious of like, oh, I need to do that. Let me do it right now. And I'm like, Kelly, you don't have to do it right now. What you're worried about is you're going to forget to do it. And so then I'll just open up my calendar and be like, okay, tomorrow morning, before at this point, like I have some time, that's when I'll do it. And it is weird how like my stress levels go down. And I still haven't done the thing, but I'm like, if I do it tomorrow morning, it's fine. I just have to remind myself, put it in my calendar, and we're good. Because again, I've built the muscle that I trust my calendar, and like I go to my calendar to know what to do, and that can be something to develop. But it's just strange if you're like, I'm not going to do this right now, but I'll do it later. It helps. And also related to that, instead of looking at 50 things on your to-do list that you know you're not going to do today, be like, okay, I'm realistically not going to do that until next Thursday. So let me put it on the calendar for next Thursday and get it off my to-do list. And it just comes around and lets me know when I need to do it, versus like looking at my to-do list and seeing all of that and feeling that anxiety and having that thing like stare at me until next Thursday, even though I know, like we all know I'm not going to do it. It's really a weird stress relief strategy or tool or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. And it's empowering. That's the part I like. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
I have the power. I can do this. So a question again, is it resonating? Sandy says it is. I'm already fairly aligned. Sandy, she's got this project manager role at Microsoft. So I know she's got this down, locked in. She says, I'm already fairly aligned with this approach on how I use my calendar to manage my to-dos. Feels like I need to do a bit more of this, not just during the work week, but also the weekends.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, your PM expertise. She goes, it might be more of my taskmaster self.
I'll also throw out there that, use it also. I've had people almost use it the other way is if you have a tendency to overbook yourself on the weekend, just throwing this out there as well, that some clients have actually gotten in the habit of like 2 hours every weekday or every weekend day, they'll schedule like unstructured time. And it's a reminder to them like, hey, I want some breathing space. They can move it around as plans shake out and stuff, but it's like actually a visual reminder in their calendar to like not overbook themselves because they actually crave some downtime. So just throw that out there for anyone because it rang that bell for me.
I like that. So part of what we do in Luxury Short-Term Rental Academy is that you need to go and stay at your property, like a forced vacation. So it's like a forced unstructured time. I love that.
I love it.
Awesome. Sandy says,
I volunteer, by the way, to do that for anyone.
Okay, got it. She's got an inspector. She's an inspector. Yeah. I love it. Okay, so Charmaine says, for the things that are unfinished on a particular day, what do you do with them to not forget to do them? Or do you do them immediately, put them on the schedule for a different day?
I love it. Okay, we can also talk about underestimating how long things take because that's a big issue. And please know if that's you, that's me all day. Super normal. So you're not weird. We can come back to that. The question of if I like don't get things done, whether it's because I underestimated how long they were going to take or I had a ton of curveballs. I'm a huge fan of kind of like what I was talking about with unstructured time on your weekends is physically like putting it in there in visual, blocking flex time in your calendar. So what you might want to think about, and it, the amount of flex time differs for every person, is how many tasks am I not completing every day? Am I rolling over like an hour every day or 2 hours every day? And what I would encourage you to do is block the bottom hour of your day from any plans, like call it flex time or wiggle room or whatever, however your brain works. And what that is it's a reality. It's like acknowledging that you're consistently doing this. And as you try and learn perhaps like how long things take you in a better way, it still gives you the cushion to push into your day so that like as things take you longer, you have some cushion in your day to absorb it versus constantly panicking like your perfect plans aren't working anymore. That can really work well for curveballs too. I know a lot of people work in environments where you're like, I can plan my day perfectly, but like curveballs every day are going to blow up these plans. Well, just be realistic. Like while curveballs are unpredictable in nature, they are predictable that they're coming. And so if you're like, I deal with 3 hours of curveballs every day, like we need to be blocking the last 3 hours of your day for curveballs every day. That obviously does not mean that you're only working on curveballs from like 2 to 5 p.m. or whatever your schedule is. But again, it's that cushion that as the curveballs hit, you have cushion of where to move the dislodged things or the things that are taking longer into. The last thing I'll say on that is if you are like me and you don't have a ton of curveballs or a ton of things you roll over every day, but you do have some, and you know, though, that if you blocked like an hour every day, you just like would ignore it and kind of plan over like know yourself. What you might want to do is make it more rare. So in that scenario, what I would encourage you to do is think like maybe like Thursday afternoons, I don't plan anything. And because it's more rare, we're more apt to protect it and be like, okay, well, that's what I do on Thursday afternoons. And again, what I want you to think of this is as you're going into your week on Monday morning, that flex time is empty and like awesome. And then as the week things happen, you have somewhere to put the dislodged things into. And then by the time you get there, it's typically full. And some things might even have to have gotten pushed out farther. This is just a way to like give yourself some breathing space in your life as you move things over. And then also just know that you are going to roll some things over. It's not going to work out perfectly, but it's a much better way to like understand and give yourself some breathing space as life hits throughout our week.
Yeah, that's so good. And I love the way you said curveballs are kind of predictable because my Lukey, my second one, every week there's something unpredictable that predictably happens where, like orchestra we didn't know about, beta club inauguration we didn't know about until the 11th hour. So there's always, but it's unpredictable, but it's like, know thyself, your kids, these things. You may know that boss who at the last minute is gonna throw on this thing on a Friday afternoon right?
Yep.
So that's just life. Everyone has it. Okay, Charmaine, she follows up. She says, underestimate. Charmaine said, I budgeted 40 hours to write a letter and it took me 2 hours. My go-to is AI. That's what just kidding. But right? No, but yeah. So underestimating. She budgeted 40 minutes, which is great that you're already budgeting time. Which is better than most, but it really took her 2 hours. So what wisdom do you have, Kelly, for that?
Super normal. As you put things in your calendar, which I know isn't necessarily your question, I just first want to say that like it's often the first time people are really tying tasks to time. So don't expect to be a pro at it right away. Don't beat yourself up for not being awesome at it right away. I think we humans all are like terrible estimators. Like, I mean, think about how many times you're like, this email is going to take me 5 minutes to write. And like 45 minutes later, you're still like polishing away. And so just know it's normal. Doesn't take away the pain. So let's talk about strategies there. First thing, I know this is I'll start with the most obvious basic one, is double or triple, especially if something's new and you're like, I think it's going to take me an hour, just double it or even triple it if you're not sure. I would much rather you stumble upon bonus time than consistently be like failing. And you're like, I'm using the system that's supposed to be more realistic. And now I feel even worse about myself. So like really, really pad it as you learn. Another thing I really like to think about is breaking things down into bite-sized steps. So I'll just use an attorney example from my patent litigator days. But like, if I was like, okay, I need to write a responsive brief, I'd be like, oh, I think it'll take me 10 hours. But if I then break down, I gotta like read the brief, pull the cases, do more legal research, outline it, run it by the people who need to bless that plan, like do the drafting, do the editing, once you start really breaking it down into what all these things take and then estimate how long those times take, we're better at estimating smaller things. And then when you add it up, you get a more realistic understanding where you're like, okay, I thought that would take 10 hours and now I see it's going to take me 35 hours. Okay. And so you just, by breaking things down into bite-sized steps, that can really be valuable. And what I would recommend doing is like, to force yourself to do that, as you're calendaring, start with an action verb. So instead of being like project A, be clear on like drafting responses for this, research this home repair issue, call this person, call these 3 people, like email these 3 people to get quotes, like really help future you know what to do. And it will also help current you estimate how long it'll take her or them to do that. It also really, again, helps with that decision fatigue. So you're not sitting down being like, what am I working on with this? It says like property A, and you're like, what was I doing about that? Where if you really spell it out, you're helping yourself just hit the ground running and start executing. And I just came out with a podcast actually, and it's called the Bright Method Podcast. And episode 2 is about underestimating. So check that out. And also more to share that it's like the second episode I ever recorded is about underestimating. So please know you're not weird if that's you. I've had clients kind of confess it as if it's like something wrong with them. And I'm like, nope, you're totally normal. Unfortunately, we all are afflicted with this.
I love it. So good. So good. A lot of our members are resonating. I see a lot of yeses. Yes. Thank
Good.
you. A ton of gratitude.
Great.
Give us the podcast name one more time and we'll add it to the show notes, guys. What was that again, Kelly?
The Bright Method Podcast.
The Bright Method Podcast. And just wanted to share your social handle as well. I know that you're on Instagram as Kelly Nolan, right?
Yep. It's at _ Kelly Nolan _. But I think if you search Kelly Nolan, hopefully it comes up.
Yep. It came up when I was posting our call today on social, but this was very insightful for me as well. I know that when you mentioned the Sunday scaries, that was just such an insightful and a small tweak that we all can do. I think is just do that planning on the Friday, and so that you can go into your weekend more present and breathing a little bit easily and, just kind of taking all of that out of your head and knowing that, okay, you've got it mapped out for the following week. And so that's one of the biggest takeaways that I got from our session today, outside of all of the other takeaways. This has just been really, really insightful. And I'm super, super grateful to have you as a part of the community, guys. Last question, last call. We just have 4 minutes to go. Last call for questions, comments, just a lot of gratitude from our listeners on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. And for those of you who are just watching on the landing page, guys, we're also in YouTube. If you want to jump in there, feel free to jump in there. You can ask your questions in there and I'll see it on the live stream here as well. But again,
one last comment I can make, Rachel.
Yeah.
I should have mentioned this. So I'm married to an ER doctor. So I know you have a lot of medical community people.
Yes.
And I will just throw it out there that if you have a medical job where your life is ever changing and you work like crazy shifts and things like that, I think sometimes people think that a system like this won't work well for them because they don't have a repetitive day or things like that. To me, my life is not repetitive because it relies so much on my husband's schedule in terms of childcare and who's doing drop off and all that kind of stuff. Like every day is different because his shifts are all over the place. I cannot imagine doing this without this system. It just, what it is you're really laying out default blocks. And then with crazy schedules, you have to move them around all the time. But when you see how much there is and what you were managing in your head instead of on the calendar, you're like, oh, okay, yeah. So I just throw this out there for the medical people who have crazy schedules. Don't rule this out. It's truly invaluable. I would say if you're the crazier your life, the more important it is to get it out of your head and be able to play with it and have better communication with people in your life as well.
That's awesome. I love that. Oh, there's Dr. Andre. Dr. Andre says, do you work with people with ADHD? I'm a busy professional with time blindness. Yeah.
So I don't have any special training on ADHD or anything like that. So I don't want to like make any representations. I will say that many of my clients do have ADHD. What I find interesting is that there's a lot of literature or like encouragement in the ADHD community to stick to paper. And I have found that this is a nice alternative, especially if it's hard to stick with paper when so much of work calendars and things like that were forced into digital in so many ways. So it's hard to stick with paper, and balancing 2 different calendars is even like more room for things to fall through the cracks. And so I think by making it all visual in a calendar, even though it's digital, it still has the more concrete visuals of like the boxes of how long things take and do they fit in there and what is that. And then we do talk about things like using timers to help keep track of time, give you like more shorter windows to work in before the breaks and things like this. And this is for people with or without ADHD that can help with that. And then if you do like paper, if you find that very useful, especially on an ADHD front, I've had clients who do all of this digitally, but then every day like print it out and then run their life through it on a printout and write on it. And then part of their end of day sweep is to take anything they've changed and put it back in their calendar to be ready for tomorrow. So just throwing out there are ways to modify. I truly believe like time management is so personal. So I work a lot on helping people find the right fit for them in that process.
Oh, I love that. I love that you want to make it as personal as possible, because you're right. We all have our own different ways of managing time. So thank you. Again, thank you. This has been invaluable. Guys, thank you for joining us tonight. A lot of feedback, like great idea, just a lot of different pointers. I know that they're highlighting there. So let us know, Kelly, give us a reminder. How do we best get in touch with you if we need to get that personal touch? We want you to help us to personally set up our lives so that we can get some of that time freedom back from, all of the things on these crazy to-do lists. How do we link up with you?
Well, you're welcome to reach out to me on email at Kelly, so Kelly at kellynolan.com. I do run 2 8-week programs a year, but just if you have questions on like what are the options and things like that, just reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you individually about it. I really like nerd out on this stuff, so please feel free to reach out. I like no question big or small, and I'll just let you know if it's something that's like better handled within a program. But if it's something small, I'm also happy to just email you back and maybe send you a little Loom video of how to do something.
Awesome. Massive thank you, Kelly.
Thank you for having me, Rachel.
I
Selfishly am so
you.
happy to have your friendship, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We'll stay connected for sure. And we'll let you all know how we're doing with our time management.
Nice.
I look forward to what the future holds.
All right. Good luck, everybody.